And there's a slight change. If you want to hear Italian, you must select Portuguese. So if you want Italian, please select Portuguese. Otherwise, you're going to hear English. The session is being recorded and shared online, and our speakers will appear one at a time while the other speakers are muted with their cameras off. You'll have the opportunity to ask questions, so please put them in the Q&A box at the bottom of the Zoom screen. You can vote for questions. If there's a question that you want to hear the answer to, you can just vote them up. So if you have a specific question for a specific speaker, put that in the message. And I'd like to share with you as well, there's a hashtag today, and that's hashtag ceramics2050. So let's get started. Our first speaker is MEP Inmaculada Rodriguez Pinheiro. She's from an important ceramic producing region, Valencia in Spain. So if you can unmute yourself, Ms. Inmaculada Rodriguez Pinheiro, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Muy bien, muchas gracias, Kathleen. Puede no escucharme correctamente, ¿verdad? Muy bien, pues buenos días a todas y a todos, a los miembros del Parlamento Europeo, de la Comisión Europea y, por supuesto, de la industria. Renaud Bartier, su director general, por el excelente trabajo que realizan para defender la posición de liderazgo global de la industria cerámica ante los desafíos de la doble transición ecológica y digital que hemos puesto. Para mí también un honor contar en este webinar con unos panelistas de primer nivel, tanto por parte de la Comisión para informarnos de las nuevas directrices en materia de descarbonización de la industria, como de los representantes del sector que nos van a dar a conocer los esfuerzos que realizan día a día en la innovación que se está llevando a cabo para descarbonizar esta industria, así como las dificultades y las legítimas reivindicaciones que demandan para poder cumplir con los objetivos de conseguir una economía climáticamente neutra. Como presidenta del Foro de la Industria de la Cerámica, permítanme también reivindicar la importancia de esta plataforma única que permite reunir a los responsables de la toma de decisiones y a los líderes de la industria para compartir juntos nuestros puntos de vista y avanzar sobre cuestiones claves para la industria cerámica. Yo en mi intervención me hace referencia a dos puntos únicamente.
I'm so sorry. I need to interrupt you for a moment. I need to interrupt you. I'm so sorry. Could you change your language to Spanish? Because I understand you more or less in Spanish, but the translation's not coming through. Could you select Spanish on the bottom of the Zoom bar? There's a globe. I don't want anyone to miss what you're saying.
Lo tengo seleccionado. I have chosen the Spanish language. This is the language I have chosen in my screen.
Okay, then it should be coming through.
Then what's happened?
Then no problem. I'm so sorry. Do continue.
Yes, but it's a problem then. I don't know if the rest of the people are able to follow me.
There are some
This is a problem only for your site?
No, we have some issues that the translation is not coming through at the moment from the Spanish.
Then what do you suggest I have to do? Because I have in Spanish, yeah.
I have the English, just everyone bear with us for a moment, just while we sort out the technical issue. I have English selected and Ms. Rodriguez Pinheiro has Spanish selected. So normally that should be coming through.
Do you want to continue or do you want to, I wait for?
Yeah, let's just pause for one moment. I'm sorry.
Yes, okay.
We pause for a second just to find out what we need to do. I have English selected and she has Spanish selected, and the interpreters are doing their work. It's just somehow it's not reaching, and I think it's not reaching some other people. Yeah, there's a few comments that people are not getting it.
Sí. Okay. I apologize.
Speaking, I understand this is working now. Yeah. My colleagues are telling me that the translation is working now.
Translation is working. Okay.
Hi, here I am.
Please stop sharing this. You could please stop sharing your screen. And if you could, Mr. Calenda, it's nice to see you.
Nice to see you. I'm sorry for the delay, but I was coming back from outside Rome. So
no problem. Can I ask you just to mute yourself and turn off your camera for a moment, and then we'll come to you in a second. and apparently it's working again. So let's.
This is the advantages of have a webinar. It's possible to go back and to go further. Okay.
Exactly. Thank you.
Bien. Buenos días a todas y a todos, a los miembros del Parlamento Europeo, de la Comisión Europea y de la industria cerámica europea. Permítanme comenzar dándole las gracias a Alain Delcourt, el presidente de Ceram Uni, y a Renaud Bartier, su director general, por el excelente trabajo que están realizando y que realizan para defender la posición de liderazgo global de la industria cerámica ante los enormes desafíos de la doble transición ecológica y digital que hemos de encarar y que necesariamente afectará a todos los sectores industriales. Es para mí también un honor dar la bienvenida a este webinar a todos los participantes y contar en la apertura con mi colega, con Carlo Calenda, que es un excelente eurodiputado que está realizando una gran labor y un gran trabajo en la Comisión de Industria como ponente del informe de la nueva Estrategia Industrial Europea y que enseguida podrán comprobar por ustedes mismos. Y por supuesto, es para mí un honor contar en este webinar con unos panelistas de primer nivel, tanto por parte de la Comisión para informarnos de las nuevas directrices en materia de descarbonización de la industria, como de los representantes del sector que nos darán a conocer los esfuerzos diarios que realizan en innovación para poder descarbonizar la industria, así como también nos hablarán de las dificultades y las legítimas reivindicaciones que demandan para poder cumplir con estos ambiciosos objetivos de conseguir una economía climáticamente neutra. Como presidenta del Foro de la Industria de la Cerámica del Parlamento Europeo, permítanme reivindicar la importancia de esta plataforma única que une a los responsables de la toma de decisiones, de los responsables de las regulaciones y a los líderes de la industria a compartir juntos nuestros puntos de vista y avanzar sobre cuestiones claves para la industria cerámica. Creo, Catherine, que detrás de esto está efectivamente ese liderazgo en el que tú trabajas y conoces también. Yo voy a centrar mi intervención en dos puntos brevemente para ceñirme al tiempo que me ha sido asignado. Quiero hacer algunas pinceladas sobre los retos que tiene la industria de la cerámica ante el objetivo de la neutralidad climática y los desafíos ante la competencia internacional. Respecto al primer punto, no cabe duda de que Europa tiene que avanzar hacia la neutralidad climática para alcanzar los objetivos en 2050. Y para ello, sin duda alguna, la modernización y la descarbonización de las industrias, especialmente de las intensivas en energía, como lo es la industria de la cerámica, es absolutamente prioritario e imprescindible. La industria cerámica ha demostrado su compromiso con los objetivos climáticos de la Unión Europea desde siempre. Los avances conseguidos por el sector hasta la fecha son importantes, aunque quizás no son suficientemente conocidos. Han sido muchos años invirtiendo y trabajando para reducir su impacto ambiental, para desarrollar productos duraderos, para contribuir a la eficiencia energética y, sin duda, para proteger a sus empleados, introduciendo las mejores prácticas en relación con la salud laboral, aspecto que especialmente quiero resaltar y poner en valor. Sin embargo, no es suficiente. Esto no es suficiente para conseguir el ambicioso objetivo que nos hemos marcado de reducir las emisiones de CO2. Es necesario impulsar mucho más la investigación y la innovación en la sostenibilidad de los productos de construcción, en la eficiencia energética, en el comportamiento medioambiental de los edificios, y en ello la industria cerámica tiene que desempeñar un papel mucho más destacado en la transición hacia la economía circular. Y para ello la Unión Europea tiene que levantar barreras reglamentarias innecesarias, tiene que suprimir obstáculos al reciclaje de materias primas valiosas, especialmente en los sectores refractarios. No basta con tener objetivos, hay que diseñar la mejor regulación y los mejores programas para cumplir los objetivos y evaluar la medida en que se consiguen y corregir en lo que no sea adecuado. También quiero destacar que la gran contribución de la industria de la cerámica a la neutralidad climática, desde mi punto de vista, será sin duda alguna la producción de edificios sostenibles y asequibles y el reciclaje de los materiales cerámicos de construcción, contribuyendo al mismo tiempo a la autonomía industrial europea, que es esencial para la recuperación de Europa. Para conseguirlo es evidente que no va a haber una solución única. La industria de la cerámica tendrá que utilizar todas las opciones técnicas y energéticas posibles, como el hidrógeno, la biomasa, la eficiencia y la recuperación energética, pero también la electrificación de algunos procesos. Y esto, sin lugar a dudas, va a dar lugar a un aumento del consumo de la electricidad. Por eso, la industria de la cerámica reivindica ser incluida en la lista de sectores elegibles para compensar los costes indirectos en la revisión de las directrices de ayudas públicas del sistema de comercio de emisiones. Las presentaciones que seguirán demostrarán los esfuerzos de la innovación en tecnologías que dependen de la electricidad en la industria cerámica. El sector se consciente que es crítico con la regulación del sistema actual y con la revisión propuesta, porque el indicador utilizado para evaluar cuantitativamente las fugas de carbono resulta discriminativo y excluyente para las pequeñas y medianas empresas y para la industria de la cerámica. Por ello, el sector, con razón, reclama una evaluación cualitativa, basada además en los 3 indicadores que están mencionados en la directiva actual y que reflejarían la realidad de una industria con un bajo nivel de rentabilidad, con un elevado porcentaje de pymes que compiten internacionalmente y no siempre en condiciones de competencia leal, y que además requieren aumentar la electrificación de sus procesos productivos precisamente para conseguir alcanzar los objetivos de neutralidad climática. En definitiva, un adecuado análisis cualitativo demostraría que la industria de las baldosas de cerámica debería ser elegible para compensar los costes indirectos de CO2. El sector solo puede descarbonizarse si se garantizan unas condiciones equitativas en relación con los costes directos y los costes indirectos de carbono derivados de la electricidad que las pymes pagan a un precio más elevado. Y yo quiero aprovechar este webinar para apoyar esta reivindicación del sector y para pedir a los representantes de la Comisión que escuchen. Difícilmente la industria europea podrá desempeñar el papel de liderazgo que se le pide para conseguir la transición ecológica si no se tiene en cuenta la realidad de la que parte la industria y el camino que necesita transitar. Y desde luego, conseguir edificios medioambientalmente sostenibles y eficientes energéticamente será determinante para conseguir una economía neutral climáticamente. Pero para ello, también Europa tiene que asegurar que las cadenas de suministro funcionan y desarrollar una autonomía industrial estratégica y una regulación que impida la competencia desleal y la deslocalización. A ello me referiré para terminar brevemente. Durante demasiado tiempo Europa ha actuado de una manera que algunos califican de ingenua, pero yo tildo de irresponsable, porque ha permitido que ciertos países, y todos saben a quién me refiero, desarrollen una estrategia de crecimiento basada en la competencia desleal, aprovechando el vacío legal europeo y dando lugar a una pérdida de liderazgo tecnológico industrial europeo. Europa corre el riesgo de quedarse obsoleta. Y la política, tecnológicamente hablando, y la política comercial de la Unión Europea tiene que servir para garantizar un comercio justo, beneficioso para todos, pero basado en unas reglas del juego equilibradas y que promuevan una competencia leal. Europa también tiene que liderar la búsqueda de los consensos necesarios para reforzar el multilateralismo y la Organización Mundial del Comercio, porque la recuperación internacional requiere más que nunca del comercio libre, justo y basado en normas. La política comercial de la Unión Europea debe facilitar el mejor acceso de las empresas europeas en terceros países, garantizando al mismo tiempo una competencia leal a nivel internacional. Para ello se han desarrollado nuevos instrumentos de defensa comercial, como el control de inversiones extranjeras, que empezará a aplicarse a partir de octubre, el instrumento de contratación pública internacional en fase de negociación y el instrumento de subvenciones extranjeras que dará lugar a una nueva regulación en 2021. Soy muy consciente de que la industria de la cerámica europea opera bajo una intensa competencia internacional, expuesta, desgraciadamente, a prácticas comerciales desleales y obstáculos técnicos al comercio muy perjudiciales para el sector. Nuestra industria no puede competir en condiciones justas con competidores como China, como Egipto o como la India si no disponemos de instrumentos sólidos para hacer frente a las prácticas comerciales desleales, como el dumping ilegal y las subvenciones distorsionadoras de la competencia. Por tanto, garantizar una competencia leal a nivel internacional es vital para el desarrollo y la supervivencia de nuestra industria. Hay que combatir la falsificación y la infracción de los derechos de propiedad intelectual y hay que garantizar la reciprocidad en las relaciones comerciales aplicando, como decía antes, efectivos instrumentos de defensa comercial. Desde 2017 se ha identificado una tendencia creciente a introducir obstáculos técnicos al comercio en forma de cambios constantes en los procedimientos de las licencias de exportación o de certificaciones obligatorias y costosas que han provocado una importante caída de las exportaciones de baldosas cerámicas. Los casos de Egipto y de Arabia Saudita son desgraciadamente muy ilustrativos. No es aceptable que 22 empresas europeas de azulejos cerámicos hayan estado esperando 3 años para la aprobación final de Egipto para exportar azulejos cerámicos. Y respecto a Arabia Saudita, la Comisión finalmente ha lanzado un procedimiento de examen, como ustedes saben muy bien, sobre los requerimientos técnicos exigidos a las importaciones de azulejos cerámicos, verdaderas barreras técnicas al comercio. Este requerimiento creo que es muy bienvenido porque además fue muy positiva la reunión que mantuvimos con el comisario Hogan, a quien de nuevo desde aquí le agradezco su gestión. Y termino ya. Pero no quiero hacerlo sin subrayar que estoy y que seguiré estando plenamente comprometida con el éxito de la industria cerámica europea y que seguiré trabajando para ayudar a garantizar una competencia leal a nivel internacional en favor de un comercio internacional justo, libre y bien regulado. El reto es enorme, pero las ganas y la ilusión de mejorar también lo son. Estoy segura que desde la colaboración entre todos los agentes intervinientes, los legisladores, los gestores y el sector privado, lo conseguiremos. Muchísimas gracias a todos por su atención.
Thank you so much, MEP Inmaculada. We hear that the challenge is enormous. You've done a fantastic job of setting the scene for us there today. And I'd like to invite our next speaker, or another keynote speaker from the Parliament, to go further into some of these details. So our second keynote speaker is MEP Carlo Calenda. Carlo Calenda, if you would like to put on your camera, thank you, there you are. And before becoming an MEP, Carlo was Italian Minister of Economic Development, and he's also served as Italy's permanent representative in Brussels. So over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've been for 5 years in Italian government, first dealing with as Vice Minister for Trade, with trade, and then as Minister with industry, energy, digital transformation and trade. I've worked very close with company operating in the sector of ceramic, and of course in Italy is the country where this sector is the strongest in Europe, and is a very peculiar sector. Which has gone through a radical transformation and received the impact of the first phase of globalization, especially as far as unfair competition from China is concerned. And therefore, the entire Italian sector moved from a production which was focused on all the various sectors of the market to a production which is very much value-added oriented. So it's they have done a fantastic work, I have to say. Now, today I'm responsible for the INI report on industrial policy, and I want to try to explain to you where we are and the contents that may be interesting for your sector. First of all, we have in the report divided the industrial policy in two parts. One is the recovery phase, and the second is the transformation phase. Your report will be very much operative. What I want to avoid is another paper where we discuss on, universe and galaxies without going into detail on how we can help companies to transform and before help company to recover. So your report is focused on tools more than on theory. Now, the first phase of the recovery phase is we are already there, and is a very very delicate phase. Why? First of all, what we know is that the European companies at the end of the coronavirus crisis are weaker, not only because they have lost businesses, but because they have much more debt than before. Almost all, let's say, the member states put in place kind of liquidity scheme during the coronavirus crisis. But this means, and of course was absolutely needed. But the point is that today we have company with a lot of more debt and less equity. Why this is very important? Because if we don't consider this element, we don't consider that today often these companies are not able to support big investments that are needed for the environmental transformation. So the standpoint of the report is that unless we put in place financial support and fiscal support in order to increase capital and equity in those companies, will be almost sure that we will fail the second phase of transformation, environmental transformation and digital transformation, simply because they don't have enough money to invest. Why this is crucial? Because I'm quite scared about the possibility that Europe will start by putting new rules on the companies without considering this situation. So what we put in the report is that unless we have in this first phase very relevant financial, fiscal incentive to the companies, we cannot ask the company to face new regulation and new rules that are, another burden that they have to manage. What will be crucial, though, is that the recovery fund will be used in order to give to those companies the needed financial means to face the second phase, the transformation one. To be extremely operative, the suggestion that we made is that also the possibility to use the European funds in order to co-finance fiscal schemes to support the company to increase capital and to invest. Why we propose this? Because as you know very well, the structure of the various European funds is often very complicated, especially for small and medium companies. They don't know how to access those funds. They have problem to use those funds. The member state have problem to manage those funds. And we cannot wait a couple of years in order to have those funds from the recovery fund being transferred to the companies. So what we say is, why you don't give the possibility to a member state to take that part of the fund and co-finance a fiscal scheme which is automatic. You don't need to comply with complicated bureaucracy. You just need to use it. We have done this in the past with Industry 4.0 plan in Italy. It has been extremely successful. The other problem that we have is the imbalance that the temporary state aid framework created in Europe. We need to recognize that today we have a Europe which is more different, I would say, among the member states, because, as you know, the states that were able to put more money into the economy did it, and for example, Germany, and other with less financial resource were not able to match the same amount of support. Now, this is another problem, and that's why I think that the temporary state aid framework should go back to the normal situation as soon as possible. And if we need to have more support, as I mentioned before, also liquidity scheme, what we should consider is that those schemes will be managed directly by the Commission. So to have a level playing field, because we cannot manage to have a Europe which is more fragmented. Then the second phase, these are the two pillars of the first phase. Give, support to increase the equity and investment capabilities of the company, and the second is restore the unity of the internal market. The second phase is the transformation one, which is extremely delicate because, beyond the rhetoric, we know very well that Just Transition Fund and the Green Deal, is not enough to support the transformation of the company. I wouldn't say simply that it's not enough. Is not enough by billions of euros. So it's a kind of flag that the Commission put there, but we cannot manage the most significant transformation with a flag. We need different tools. Why this is crucial to explain to the Commission? Because my fear is that whilst it's very difficult to them to put together a significant amount of money that will support the transition of the company, they are able to put in place new rules that will definitely damage the European company. So in the second phase, again, what we ask the Commission is to have an assessment and an impact analysis for all the various regulations that they are considering, especially as far as environmental transformation is concerned. So there is no way in which we can accept to have, for example, stricter regulation on ETS or on carbon emission, generally speaking, without having the carbon border tax. Because I tell you that will be much easier for the Commission to work the other way around. So to have stricter rule, and then we see what we can do with the carbon border tax. This is not acceptable, and we have to be extremely clear on that. Whatever we do in Europe to transform the economy has to be feasible, has to be financed, because companies are not able to finance themselves. And this is very complicated, because it's not just a question of having enough money to invest, but it is also a question of operative cost. Let me make an example. If we want to move, for example, from carbon electricity production to gas, and if we want to have a decarbonized economy, you not only need to have more money for the investment, you need to have a price of gas which is significant lower than what we have today.
Thank you.
And this means that you need to have, for example, a scheme for the gas-intensive company, which, for example, is very important for your sector.
Yeah.
And you cannot exclude this with, a state aid framework, which on one end asks you to invest in environmental transformation, and on the other hand is saying that you cannot support gas because gas is considered to be something bad just because it's not renewable.
Okay.
So, and I conclude, sorry. You have the draft of the report. There are many other things that are there. We want to have KPIs for all the tools of the European industrial policy, because otherwise we don't know if they're working or not. Please look at the paper, give us all the info, all the feedback that you want. We are now in a phase where we need to make a scrutiny of the 750 amendments that came. We need your support in order not to have another industrial policy in Europe, which is not an industrial policy, but just a wish list and a lot of rules that will damage the company. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Lots of very powerful messages there from Carlo Calenda, MEP. We'll come back to both of our MEPs during the panel discussion, so thank you so much. Next, we will hear from 7 speakers about different breakthrough technologies. So this touches on what the MEPs have been talking about. First, I'd like to welcome Roman Dubrava from the European Commission's DG Klima. He's the Deputy Head of Unit. Roman, if you're there and you can come onto the screen, that would be helpful.
Hello, good morning.
Hello there, good morning.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, honorable members. I'm very, very pleased to join this debate and seminar. And if you allow me, I would like to focus on the concrete scheme that the Commission is launching very soon. The Innovation Fund. I hope you can see it on the screen.
I can see it, and if you can go into presentation mode, that will be helpful for everyone.
Okay.
And just to remind you, you have 7 minutes.
Okay, I'll try to stick to the time.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much for the introductory words and very strong messages. I hope that the Innovation Fund is addressing many of those messages that were mentioned. This is the fund that is the other side of the ETS directive. So on one hand side, the ETS directive is asking companies to reduce their carbon emissions. On the other hand, the ETS directive enables to finance projects that lead to decarbonization. And the Innovation Fund is one of those. The objectives of the fund is indeed to support in Europe, European companies, European products that will enable the decarbonization of the system. It will support projects that are difficult to finance. It will address projects that are innovative, that are challenging, but necessary to set the trend in the industry, which will lead to significant emission reductions and enable the companies to compete on the longer term. So by demonstrating new technologies, new solutions, we very much hope that the fund will be able also to impact their future costs so that more companies can adopt such solutions in the future. We expect that the fund will, over the decade, because it will be up and running until 2030, that the fund will be able to support quite a broad variety of projects, large scale, small scale, from different countries, from different technology groups. And the ultimate objective is that all these projects will indeed demonstrate that the net zero economy in 2050 is something that is doable and feasible. Some key features of the fund. So with the carbon price of 20 euros per ton, the fund will have its disposal about 10 billion euros until 2030. And also coming back to what the MEP Calenda was saying, the importance of operating costs. The Innovation Fund supports both the capital expenditure and operating costs of projects that are applying for funding, because indeed the operational costs are important, especially in the decarbonized system when you are introducing a product which is simply more costly and requires more investment. The fund will address renewable energy, so green electricity. It will address and heat. It will address CCS, CCU technologies. It addresses energy-intensive industry decarbonization. So this is very much relevant for also the ceramics industry and energy storage. So these are the 4 key areas. But the fund will also look into cross-cutting projects whereby you have the sector coupling possibilities to use one product from another industry and reutilize it in another industry, and increase the synergies between industrial sectors and installations. As I said, the fund is supporting additional capital and operating costs of the projects during the 10 years of operation. So we allow long projects and a long period of time during which the projects can be supported from the fund. And we are working, now we are very busy with finalization so that we can launch the first call for projects already in the coming days. The first call will have a size of 1 billion euros. It will address large-scale projects, so those that go beyond 7.5 million of capital expenditure. And I will say at the end, we are also preparing the small-scale call towards the end of this year, so that we also address smaller-scale projects. The difference and also simplification in the Innovation Fund, which was also called for, is that the Innovation Fund allows single applicants to apply. So we do not require complicated consortia, international consortia. We are able to support individual companies who are applying for funding. As I said, the objective of the fund is to support European solutions. So the projects have to be implemented on the territory of the EU member states, Norway and Iceland. A bit more about the criteria for the projects. So we have 5 selection criteria, but we have, for the large scale call for proposals, 2 stages. And this also comes after deep discussions that we had also with the stakeholders in the ceramic industry to reduce the administrative burden. So in the first kind of lighter stage, expression of interest stage, we will assess 3 criteria. So what is the greenhouse gas emissions avoidance that the projects deliver? What is their degree of innovation, and how mature these projects are in terms of structuring and design, so that they can meet their financial close by 4 years. Then if the projects are successful in all 3 criteria, they are invited to the second stage, where we will assess 2 additional elements of the projects, namely, what is the potential for their scalability? So how can the solution be replicated across the sector or within the sector? And we will obviously look at the cost efficiency. So how much does it cost to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions with the resources asked from the fund? We have added another benefit, especially for projects that do not have, let's say, so matured applications, which is so-called project development assistance. So if the projects in the first stage of evaluation are found by the evaluators as prospective, so they have a good potential to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and they have a good degree of innovation, but there will be gaps in their project maturity, will be able to offer project development assistance and help these projects to develop further.
Thank you.
What is another element that is, I think, important, which makes it different probably to other programs, because we were really thinking of how we can simplify the way how the funds will be paid out, so that we are as close as possible to the normal business of companies and their normal investment decisions. The Innovation Fund support will be paid along the project milestones, as we call them. We have two milestones that are obligatory, obviously, which is the financial close and entry into operation. But project promoters will be able to suggest additional milestones as they go along with their own project. And the funds will be disbursed once these milestones are met. So this will be the lump sum payments. We will not be checking, like in other programs, the full costs. What is important for the Innovation Fund is that the milestones that are proposed by the project will be met and the project progresses. 40% of our support, of the Innovation Fund support, is not related to the achieved greenhouse gas emissions. So this is also part of the risk that the Innovation Fund takes on its shoulders and puts on the table. And the first 40% of funding can be disbursed upon or before financial close. So this is also to enable the development stages of the project. And the 60% of the support has to be related to the avoided greenhouse gas emissions. But as I said, this will be paid out along the project evolution during construction and once the project enters into operation.
Thank you. You're pretty much out of time, I'm afraid. Is there anything
so
you
I will
would
not
like to
go
just
in
quickly conclude with?
In more details, just probably on the timeline. So we are working on the launch of the first call, as I said, in the coming days. Please follow our website. There will be a lot of communication related to the launch. And we hope that the large-scale call grants will be signed in the scope of next year. We are also preparing a number of events specific to the Innovation Fund. So please follow our websites. We will have many outreach activities with detailed explanations and tutorials for the project promoters. And as I said, we are also planning to launch the call for small-scale projects, so those below 7.5 million capital expenditure towards the end of this year, where again we have already discussed with the expert group, and we are very open for any ideas, especially how to best frame such call so that it fits also the needs of the ceramics industry. And I would stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Roman. That was excellent. I would like to invite our next speaker to come, another speaker from the European Commission, Vincent Bassouillot. And while we switch over, I'd like to remind you that there is interpretation. So on the bottom bar of Zoom, you'll see a globe icon if you haven't selected a language. And when you click on that, there's English, there's Spanish, and it says Portuguese, but it's actually Italian. So if you would like Italian translation, please click on Portuguese. We're asking all of our speakers to keep to time, but we're also asking them to speak more slowly for the interpreters. So it's not an easy task for our speakers today. Mr. Bassouillot, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you. Good morning,
Hello,
Catherine.
good morning.
Hello. Thank you very much for inviting me to this very important webinar. I'm very happy to be there, and I'm speaking on behalf of Peter Handley, our head of unit of within DG GROW. We are in charge of energy-intensive industries and raw materials, and we are used to work with Ceramuni on these topics regarding energy-intensive industries. I've prepared a short PPT, but as you know, I let you manage yes, so if we can make it, and let's start with the first, okay. The next slide, please, okay. Okay, so first of all, energy-intensive industries is a very key sector for the European economy. EII's energy-intensive industries represent strategic value chains, and they are part of many solutions for other sectors to reduce their emission, such as transport, construction, power generations, and so on. They are also very important in terms of energy consumption, in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, and something which is very specific in this sector we are facing with long investment cycles. I would like to mention the work which has been developed by the high-level group on energy-intensive industries since 2015, and I would like to highlight the very active participation of Ceram Uni in this high-level group. We have with this high-level group collectively, we have developed an industrial transformation master plan. The objective of this master plan is to prepare pathways for the transition towards climate neutral and circular economy. It has been issued last November 2019, and with, I would say, three key aspects. First of all, the creation of markets for climate neutral circular economy products, which means that the pathway starts from the downstream, the products themselves, and then the second point, developing climate neutral solutions and financing the uptake, and upstream access to resources and deployment. I'm very happy to repeat that this master plan has been a key contribution for the Green Deal and the EU long-term industrial strategy. Next slide, please. I won't go in details with this master plan, but I would like to make to present some key recommendations from the high-level group you can find in this master plan. First of all, the creation of markets, as mentioned before, and to create these markets, it's important to have life cycle approach, to have right measures of greenhouse gas footprints of products and materials. And also we have enhanced the use of public procurement to select sustainable products and services. In terms of innovation, my colleague has presented the Innovation Fund, so it's very important to develop during this, by 2025, large-scale pilots to showcase clean technologies for energy-intensive industries, and also to align eligibility criteria between different funds, both on EU level, national level, and interoperability of funding mechanism. Of course, investments are key in this transformation, and it's important to pipeline technology projects to be funded both by public funds and the private sector. And it means that we need to facilitate access to private capital at affordable cost, including through de-risking instruments. I will mention also energy and raw materials, which are essentials when we are dealing with energy-intensive industries. We need to guarantee access and availability of climate neutral energy at global competitive prices. We see solutions such as electrification or the deployment of hydrogen, for example. Everything could be possible. These things could be possible if and only if they are supplied at a competitive price. That means that we need to supply and to develop infrastructures for low emissions alternative feedstock sources, such as hydrogen. Integrated approach of infrastructure, including energy, transport, and digital networks, will be part of the solutions for the transformation of energy-intensive industries. And regarding raw materials, as mentioned by the previous MEP's words, we need to establish a strategic approach of access to sustainable raw materials through partnerships with resource-rich countries and also through better use of domestic resources. Next slide, please.
You're almost out of time, Vincent.
Half of time? Okay, let's move. In March, we have developed a new, in November, we released the European Green Deal, which is a new EU growth strategy based on a roadmap to make Europe the first climate neutral continent by 2050. And it covers many aspects of the industries and of the economy, but meeting this objective of a European Green Deal will require significant investments. Next slide. European Industrial Strategy, which is about transforming our industry to make it greener, digital, and supportive to a more resilient economy to address the twin challenge of a green and the digital transformation, and with a new approach based on industrial ecosystem approach. And I would like to mention the European Alliance on Low Carbon Industries to be developed based on the experience of the area of Battery Alliance or plastics and microelectronics. The objective of such alliance is to bring new technologies to a market, facilitating this transition and pooling resources for new solutions for sustainable industrial processes to be tested on large scale. Next slide, please. So everything was fine, but as all of us have experienced, last March we experienced this coronavirus crisis, and that means that we have to adjust the policy tools. And last 27th of May, the Commission has proposed a recovery plan based on different tools in order to strengthen to make the industry and the economy starting again, and accelerate the green and digital transformation to strengthen the resilience of our industries. It's based on different tools. I will not go in details of these different tools. Most of us knows them, and this is something still in development in terms of implementation. I will just mention the very important role of the relevant national authorities to be able to benefit from the funding available under the Resilience and Recovery Facility and for the twin green and digital transition. Next slide, please. So I will conclude by making these recommendations based on the strategy of the Commission strategic policy framework, European Green Deal, digital and March package on industry, and the recovery plan are the same. Are now the common the tools, the policy tools for this strategic policy framework, and the question is the implementation of these initiatives based on required partnership. And for that, we need joint commitment and cooperation between all the EU institutions, industries, member states, and also European regions.
Thank you.
Regarding the policy of the development of a policy, the work goes on, and I'm happy to announce the next Sherpa meeting of the high-level group on EIIs on the 3rd of July to follow up the policy developments relevant to EIIs. Thank you very much for your attention.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And that's a great introduction that we've had from two MEPs and two different DGs in the European Commission. I think I failed to introduce Vincent properly. He's the policy officer in the Energy Intensive Industries and Raw Materials Unit of DG GROW, which is the Commission's Internal Market, Industry, Entrepreneurship and SMEs Directorate General. So thank you, Vincent. We will switch speakers now to Renaud Battier. Just a reminder again about the interpreting. If you need interpreting, please click on the globe symbol in the bar. I'd also like to remind our speakers about the timing, because we do have so many interesting people to hear from today. So Renaud Battier is the Director General of Ceram Uni, so you probably know him already. He's also Secretary General of the World Ceramic Tiles Forum and has many other roles in the ceramic industry. So I would like to hand over now to Renaud. You have 7 minutes.
Thank you very much, Catherine. I hope you can hear me well. Excellent. So thank you, and many thanks to the European Parliament members who have introduced the debate at the beginning, and to all our members in the audience, and I think the 130 people who are attending currently on this very specific subject. So I will try to be as brief as possible, and of course I can develop in the Q&A. Moving directly into the subject of decarbonization. So in this context, this debate is extremely important for us at this time because we are in the process of updating the roadmap that we prepared and we developed with you, Catherine, in 2012. At the time, we tried to assess the potential for the ceramic sector to contribute to the objective of reducing by 80%. At the time, the target was 80% reduction by 2050 for everyone. What we did not see on these graphs is that a huge effort was made and reduction of CO2 was made in the 80s in the ceramics industry when we switched completely from coal to natural gas. And natural gas has ever since really helped us to be extremely competitive, become export champion with all our SMEs. This conversion, as I said, allowed us to be competitive. Then still, of course, we tried to see in 2012 what we could do. We had two scenarios, and the one on the left, scenario A, was the most realistic and could deliver, we thought it could deliver minus 68% of reduction by 2050. Scenario B could achieve something close to the EU objective at the time of 80%, but only by electrifying half of our kilns, and the cost was completely prohibitive and not realistic, as you can see. So now we are moving into a different context where the EU has adopted a new goal, which is to reach carbon neutrality in 2050. We are updating our roadmap. We are in this process, and the roadmap in 2012 identified technologies to improve raw materials, so reducing emissions at the phase of raw materials production, energy efficiency, process optimization, kiln designs, and so on. It included cogeneration as well, which for us is a very adapted or very fitted technology because it works very well for us to produce both electricity from and heat. The problem is that if we use cogeneration, then we use a bit more natural gas, and ETS is making us pay more carbon for this. In the context of this new EU objective, what we are trying to do is to look at the technologies which we did not take into account at the time. So mainly substitution of natural gas with renewable sources, for example. We think that the future will really be into hybrid technologies, mixing natural gas with, of course, hydrogen to some extent, and this is being investigated in detail. Also mixing natural gas and microwave, and using industrial heat pumps. So all this is being investigated as we will see. I think the research and innovation projects that we will see later really show to what extent are the new technologies that I already mentioned that we want to investigate further. More efficient energy recovery with industrial heat pumps, hybridizing therms, considering cogeneration and having the right incentives for cogeneration. So these different technologies will be adapted to different contexts at national level. As I said, we have plenty of different subsectors. We are very heterogeneous, so we need absolutely all solutions. And this is what we are really, it's really the spirit in which we are engaged. So moving to the following slide, I hope I'm in time. Concerning the other part, so we need to be engaged, our members need to be engaged, we need the support and the ETS Innovation Fund and Horizon Europe, public-private partnerships such as the SPIRE, which will then become the Process for Planet, where in the past we had 10% of the projects involving one ceramic partner, so it has worked for us. But we also need the recognition of the exposure of ceramics to these indirect costs. So direct and indirect carbon costs. And here we're speaking more specifically about the inclusion of ceramic tiles in the list of sectors eligible for compensation costs under the ETS stated guidelines, because we are recognized as gas intensive, but we think that EU regulators do not take into account sufficiently that we are going to become more electro-intensive, but we need all these solutions, that we need to invest so much in all these solutions that we need the incentives. And then after the ETS stated guideline, the review of the energy and environment stated guidelines will come. All our sectors are currently on the Annex 3, the list of sectors eligible, and we need to stay on this list if the regulators want us to invest in these technologies. And the fundamental problem that we've had in this context is that legislations like the ETS are really made for large industries, for large emitters, and we are a large industry in turnover, but we have many, and we are very large in jobs, 200,000 direct jobs. But with all our SMEs, in fact, it's very difficult to fit the criteria that are often defined. And the criteria to identify who is exposed to direct and indirect carbon leakage, so the risk of relocation, are really made for large industries, not like us. You can see here we have made an infographic. You have on the left-hand side the current method, so it's simplified, but this is the idea. So we are currently assessing the intensity by dividing CO2 by profits plus the labor cost. And this means that the more jobs you have for the same turnover, then the less carbon intensive you seem to be. Which is, for us, it's completely wrong to compare CO2 by the number of jobs and the number of people working in your industry. We think that the right method would rather be to what you can see on the right-hand side, comparing CO2 with profits, and that really shows you to what extent you can pass through the carbon cost or not. And it has nothing to do with labor cost. So that would be a representative carbon intensity for labor, SME-intensive sectors. We do not ask to change the whole methodology, but it's imperative that for us, the option which is in the ETS directive to have qualitative assessment is always used for ceramic industries for this reason. And I will finish with one last slide, which is showing which was made by our consultants PricewaterhouseCoopers for the reply to the consultation on the ETS stated guidelines. And it is showing that ceramic tiles, and it would be even much more the percentage of labor cost, which would be even higher for bricks and roof tiles. But it's showing that for ceramic tiles, within the gross value added, so which includes both labor cost and profits, our labor costs represent 15% of this gross value added. For other sectors, it's less, and we compete particularly with the sector of refined petroleum, because with refined petroleum, you can make carpet, you can make vinyl tiles, so plastic tiles and so on, and linoleum. So we compete directly with these, and if the methodology applies completely differently to them, because it's only 2% of their labor costs represent only 2% of their GVA. So I finished on this, and I'm happy to answer any question at the end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bruno. If I just look back over the speakers that we've had this morning so far, I mean, we're hearing a lot of challenges, that the Just Transition Fund and the Green Deal are not enough, maybe billions of euros not enough, and that it is challenging for a sector with many SMEs to make these transitions, especially as we heard in the aftermath of the Corona lockdown. So we'll come to all of this later on in the Q&A. I just wanted to sum up a little bit. What I did hear though also was that there is a political will and there is a lot of enthusiasm to make these changes. So that's really positive. And it leads us nicely to our next speaker, Vladislava Iyovkova. She's a director at PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC Advisory, and she's going to talk about the economic aspects of decarbonization. So we've heard about many challenges. We're going to hear some solutions in a moment, but first of all, let's look at the economic aspects. Over to you, Vladislava.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Vladislava from PwC, and I'm pleased to be with you here today. So we've been working with Ceramini for some years now, assessing the impact of EU ETS. And today I will speak to you about indirect emissions, state aid compensation. That's a topic that was already introduced in the previous presentation. Today I'll give you some key facts, some highlights on the economics. So namely, I'll explain why the roadmap that was nicely presented by Renaud is very important for this industry. A lot of things are going on. However, the economics of the sector has also to be considered with a key question that was introduced throughout this session, throughout the morning, how to make it possible and how to ensure that there is indeed an even playing field for the sector. So just let me start with some key facts about the ceramic tiles and flags industry. So ceramic tiles is an industry which is composed of mostly small and medium enterprises across Europe, employing over 58,000 employees based on Eurostat in Europe. And so this industry is present in most of the European countries, really hugely widespread across Europe. As you might know, the eligibility for the state aid scheme to compensate for indirect emissions, as I now introduced, is based on a few criteria, which do not consider only the ability to invest and so to curb emissions, but also some market characteristics, as well as the profitability of this industry. So today I will develop mainly on these 2 points to give you the other side of the criteria, the other side of the challenges that the sector is facing as of today. So our first point that was already introduced at the beginning is the trade. So as you know, ceramic tiles are highly traded worldwide. Today, the sector averages a very high trade intensity. So what is trade intensity? It is the ratio between the import-exports of the industry with respect to the extra-European countries and also the production plus imports. So it's a measure of the trade dynamics and it's a main criteria the Commission is considering to assess whether an industry is to be eligible to state aid compensation. So in the context of this industry, trade intensity is quite high. It's been historically high. And today we see that also comparable industry who, as of today, have been receiving the state aid and somehow do not have the same trade intensity as ceramic tiles. I make also another point on the internal market. So as you know, the substitution issue does not only concern external trade, but also internal substitutability. So the point we will make here is that ceramic tiles can be substituted with other alternatives, we develop on which, and some also are deriving from products, components who are included already in the list of eligible sectors for state aid scheme. Regarding profits, so profit margins are, as of today, has historically been in the average of sectors who have been considered eligible for state aid compensation. However, if we project this over the next year, so over the future, we'll see together in a few minutes how the profits of the industry are likely to become negative. So over the ETS next regulatory period in the absence of a compensation. And this could be even more exacerbated by the COVID crisis impact, which is not taken into account in the figures I'll show you today. And so to conclude with this first overall introduction, so the sector can reduce its emissions. There are a lot of programs, a lot of investment that can go on. However, this level playing field must be ensured, especially with regards to the external trade and with regards to the internal market as well. So for the first point, I'll show you briefly the figures of trade intensity that I just introduced. So trade intensity for this industry historically has been reaching ratios above 30 and 40%, which is very, very high, also with respect to the criteria that the Commission is studying. And over the last year, if this ratio managed to stabilize, well, this can be explained by anti-dumping duties, which was imposed, and also nowadays what is being considered for Saudi Arabia, for instance. And if we consider other sectors, which as of today are granted or receive the state aid compensation for indirect emissions, we can see that ceramic tiles and flags over the historical period, which is considering for assessment, has higher trade intensity. So which means that the sector is, as of today, already more exposed to these competition issues with third countries. Regarding internal market, as I introduced, So ceramic tiles appear to be quite easy to substitute even in the internal market. Here we propose an example regarding floor covering, which is one of the main markets in ceramic tiles, on a set of countries which account for more than 60% of the total market. And we show that in this segment, in this major segment, ceramic tiles account for approximately 1/3 of the market. So there are other products such as carpets, such as resilient. So resilient includes, for instance, linoleum, PVC, so other petroleum-based products, laminates, parquet, and other. So here we show that indeed substitution is possible. And in case some distortion, cost distortion is applied, if the industry is not compensated for indirect emission, a cost disadvantage might arise, and there will be substitutes which can be ready also to undertake some further market shares. And as a reminder, so the resilient products which are petroleum-based somehow derive also from sectors who are petroleum-based and who today also are included in the list, historically have been included in the list of carbon leakage.
Thank you.
My last point will be about forecasted profits. So here we study EBIT margin, just to show you how it can evolve over time, over the next ETS period, with regards to different levels of indirect cost compensation. So this is EBIT as a percentage of turnover, and supposing a 50 euro per ton CO2 price. So it's a high option. What we see is that in 2021, the industry should have somehow significant, somehow positive EBIT margin, even though not very high compared to the CapEx, which is has to be engaged by this kind of companies. As a reminder, this was computed before the COVID crisis. So I made this estimation last year before the COVID crisis. So as of today, we could already be even in a lower range. And by adding some mathematically carbon costs, and by considering the market trajectories and the trajectory of all other costs, including labor costs, for instance, energy costs, we see that the profit for this industry is likely to become negative as soon as 2026, or maybe even before, if the market conditions do not get better following the COVID crisis. So this is what my last point for today, just to show you that in this moment of time, in this specific moment of time, but even generally, even before the COVID crisis, an industry like the one that we are discussing, based on SMEs, based on small producers, would really need to have some compensation to be performing both in the global and in the local market. So
thank you so much.
For questions afterwards.
Thank you, Vladislava. I mean, as we switch to our next speaker, it does reflect something that we see across the European Union. You know, industry sectors where there are lots of SMEs and lots of jobs at stake, but we do still need to make the change to a less carbon intensive industry. So it's a very important challenge, and we're lucky to have such informed speakers with us today. We move to the next part of our program, which is a presentation from 3 different breakthrough technology products and projects. So I'd like to welcome our first speaker talking about the breakthrough technologies, and that's Abelone Koester. She's from Denmark, from the Danish Technological Institute, and she's the product manager for building and construction. Abelone, would you join us in the Zoom room?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invitation to speak about microwave-assisted gas firing. I will give you a short introduction to the technology firing with microwaves. I will tell you about some recent project results and give you my view on the potential of this technology and the necessary measurements to realize this potential. And I'll just see if I can give you my PowerPoint presentation here. Yes?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. Okay, so heating with microwaves, when you subject a material to microwaves, it will either go through it as a transparent material, it'll be reflected, or it will be absorbed to some degree. And it's the latter that we utilize, because the raw clay, the dry clay, and all its transitions into ceramics can be heated by microwaves. So the outside of the kiln must be metal, so the microwaves are reflected inwards and do not escape the kiln. And the insulation material must be transparent. So ideally, the only thing heated in the kiln is the ceramic goods. So when we heat a solid body with a microwave, you would, if you imagine the load you see in the middle part of the display, the microwaves will mainly, it will heat volumetrically the whole ceramic body, but it will start to cool off from the outside. So you have a high temperature in the center and you will cool off in the sides of the stack. If you then supply conventional gas firing, you will have the opposite. You will heat from the outside and the middle of the stack will take some time to reach the temperature. So this is actually the advantages of microwave assisted gas firing, is that you can level out the heating from the microwaves with the gas. So you should ideally get a uniform temperature. And this way you can even heat up faster because you can have a uniform heating. So what we did in a recent project is that we actually built a pilot microwave assisted gas firing kiln, as you see now. And it is the capacity of it is around 200 facade bricks, and it can fire up to 1300 degrees Celsius. It has 4 gas burners, so it can heat with gas alone. And it has 4 microwave ports, 2 microwave generators. So we did a lot of firing with this kiln, and during a lot of firings with where we tried to use conventional heating with gas, and we tried to heat as well as we could with the dense stack. You can see there it was stacked the same way that it is in the brickworks. So it took, normally would take, we can heat them in 24 hours to the top temperature, and we would soak them for 6 hours to get the optimum quality. But when we applied the microwaves, we could heat in nearly half the time, 12 hours time, and we only needed a soaking time for 4 hours. So we could heat much faster and still obtain the good quality of bricks, both aesthetically and technically. As far as energy consumption, we could see that we could almost halve the use of fossil fuel, because we transformed into electrical energy using the microwaves, and the total energy savings were 20% when we compared the optimum gas firing with the optimum microwave assisted gas firing. This kind of savings we could not obtain in a standard tunnel kiln, because we must be aware that the energy saving is mainly due to the shorter firing. So we have a less energy loss from the kiln itself. But still, we were able to transfer from the gas to the electrical energy. So what were the benefits from this project? We used at least 44% of energy electric by applying the microwaves. So this is the potential. We shortened the heating time by up to 50%. So this would give you less heat loss from the kiln itself. It would also allow you a higher productivity, a higher throughput from a kiln, or a shorter tunnel kiln if you like. But the shortcomings of this is, of course, we did not have an optimum kiln design. We did this more or less based on experience. Instalat built a very good gas kiln, and a project partner, CTEC Institute from the UK, did the design of the microwave appliances. So we had a good design, but based on what we knew after literally hundreds of firings, we knew that we would have done something differently. And the main reason why we were not able to supply more than nearly 50% microwave energy was because of the kiln design, that we were based on controlling the heat with the gas firing, so we could not go up higher, simply because we could not control the kiln. So a large problem here, other than the use of a lot of expensive electricity, is scaling up the kiln design. So what we think is the solution here is a digital modeling to do a digital twin or an e-kiln. We already made the concept for a development project for this, where we have the partners lined up. Just let me find it in my notes here.
You have 1 minute, Abulana.
Yeah, there was already a prototype for a CFD, computational fluid dynamics modeling of a tunnel kiln done by Professor Luca Montorsi and his team in the University of Modena and Reggio Emilia. So we know this is possible. We already did the modeling of the microwave field. So we believe that the way forward is actually to do a digital twin. It will simulate any firing, any setting, and you will be able to test out how this works. And predicting the temperature of ceramics and energy consumption in a virtual firing would make it, would enable that you can design for new firing technologies. We learned from the roadmap that most kilns have a life expectancy of 40 years. So it does not make sense to tear down all these kilns, but using this digital twin, if you make a digital twin of a firing kiln, you can optimize the conventional kilns. You can even retrofit it with microwaves, or you can test any other technology that would optimize your energy consumption and your firing. So the digital twin would be a way to make this safe, but you would need a research and development project to realize this. That's basically my point of view on this. Okay.
Thank you so much. That's super interesting. When you think of microwaves, you're not necessarily thinking of ceramic kilns. So that's super interesting. Thank you. Let's go to our next breakthrough technology presentation from Stefan Puschkas. He's a project manager at ceramic producer Wienerberger. Stefan, will you put your microphone and your camera on, please?
Hello, everybody. This is Stefan Puschkas speaking from Wienerberger. I do R&D for 12 years now in Wienerberger, and in the last years we focused mainly on the development and the integration of heat pumps. At the moment, right now, we have installed 2 absorption heat pumps and 1 compression heat pump, and the second mentioned I will talk about now. It's a Horizon 2020 funded project called Trificiency, and it is about the demonstration, and I want to point this out, the demonstration of new developed compression heat pumps. I would like to, we are proud to have installed the European's very first high temperature compression heat pump in one of our plants. We talk about a project of 12 members and 6.5 million euro of budget. We develop in this project 2 kinds of heat pump drying systems. One is an open loop system where the evaporated water is used as a refrigerant, becomes compressed with a turbocharger to condensate the evaporated water and to recover the latent energy. This technology is also very, how to say, could fit very well to brick drying, but anyhow, we are in the second part of the project in the closed loop drying development. Here, it is about the compression heat pump that provides temperatures up to 160 degrees Celsius. And the innovative things in this heat pump are the refrigerant coming from Chemours, the compressors. We have 1 screw compressor from Bitzer and piston compressors from Viking Heat Engines, and the second application you find in the Wienerberger plant. And the lubricant is also an issue in high temperature compression heat pumps. So we are working in the closed loop system and not in the open loop system. The machine looks more like you see below. It has a heating capacity of design of 400 kilowatts. We have reached 250 kilowatts on the sink side, and maximum water temperature of 160 degrees Celsius. The electricity consumption is between 70 to 85 kilowatt. Yeah, I mentioned the piston compressors coming from Viking Heat Engines. The refrigerant is new developed. It comes from Chemours and has a global warming potential of only 2. And the lubricant is developed by Fuchs Schmierstoffe. And our role is the demonstration in an industrial environment of this new technology. All this is installed in Upper Austria in our so-called demo plant. This is a quite small hollow block production site where we try out all the new technologies, best available technologies to figure out how to improve and or reduce the specific energy consumption of existing production sites. I think everybody's familiar to the production of bricks of our listeners. There's the tunnel dryer and the kiln, and the excess heat from the cooling zone of the kiln is used to dry the to heat the dryer. And now have a look on the temperature profile and the relative humidity profile through the dryer, because in the next step it will look slightly different. The goal is to recover energy from the exhaust air of the dryer, and we do it like this. Now, much more complicated. We still take out energy from the cooling zone of the kiln, but this energy is used to drive an absorption heat pump, and the absorption heat pumps is used to recover latent energy out of the exhaust air from the dryer. We produce water of 90 degrees Celsius, and with this 90 degrees Celsius water, we heat the tunnel dryer with internal heat exchangers. They were used as, not centuries, but decades ago. It was normal that we had internal heat exchangers in dryers. Now we have to come back to this technology. Yeah, and we take advantage of this 90 degrees Celsius water duct. We use it as a source of energy for the dry efficiency to demonstrate the reliability of this new system. We take out some energy from this 90 degrees and we lift it up to 160 degrees to provide energy to the return channel. Here you see from bird view, our dryer is a dryer with forward tracks and one return track, and a part of the return track is used as a final drying zone. We installed a recirculation duct with a fan and a heat exchanger, and this heat exchanger is linked to the dry efficiency heat pump, and we can provide quite high temperatures to this return channel. Dry efficiency. This is the first stage. This is the absorption heat pump. It's a huge thing, and we have to get familiar with this technology. It's not that easy, but now I think we are quite professional with this. And the second stage is the dry efficiency heat pump. It's situated in a container. You see here the pressurized secondary loop to provide the hot water to this heat exchanger. You see the recirculation duct with an axial fan, and behind there's the return track of the dryer. The goal of dry efficiency is the demonstration and the reliability of a new compression heat pump in our case. It's not, and this has to be pointed out, it's not to improve the energy efficiency of this plant. A heat pump or a high temperature heat pump makes only sense in the case that there's not another source of energy at the required temperature level available. In today's brick factories, normally this is not the case. Before we have to operate the kilns, so to reduce extremely the excess energy in the cooling zone, or we have to develop new kilns. And then the heat pump is the method, I think, to operate a dryer. Extra benefits in this kind of projects are that we recover water. This is an issue in many regions. Think about 1.2 kilograms of water per kilowatt hour recovered energy. You have to talk to your authorities what to do with the water, or you can use it in your factory. And interesting, the reduction of the air mass flow through the dryer. It helps also to reduce electricity with less air in the dryer. I think this is my last foil. Following, we compare an ordinary gas-driven drying process with a heat pump-assisted drying process. We have to consider CO2 emission factors of natural gas. This is varying. Austria talks about 270 grams, European Union 290 grams. We have a primary energy factor to take into account for gas, and this is the most important one, the primary energy factor for electricity. Then we get this result that makes us quite happy. We see the CO2 emission reduction potential for drying above the sink temperature, the required temperature we need for the drying process. In case that we can operate at quite low temperatures, let's say 110 degrees, it is possible theoretically to reduce the specific CO2 emissions by 90% or 85%. And the higher the temperatures we need for our process, the less the reduction is. And the cake we are talking about in Europe is 320 to 800 terawatt hours of energy that is used to operate the dryers, not in the brick factory, but in general. Drying is a very energy intensive and important process in the industry. There's a huge saving potential, and dry efficiency is a puzzle piece towards electrification of the brick industry.
Thank you so much, Stefan.
Time? I don't know.
Almost.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was a very interesting presentation of an EU Horizon 2020 project. Our next speaker is Luis Huayta. He's head of R&D at Caraben Group. So Luis, Stefan, I would just need you to stop sharing your screen. Thank you. And Luis, if you could join us with your camera.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for the invitation to speak today. I bring another example about microwave technology. Let's see. Okay, this is the project Destiny. The Destiny stands for Development of an Efficient Microwave System for Material Transformation in Energy-Intensive Processes. So the aim of the project is to develop a high-temperature microwave processing system. We want to release a container-size movable microwave power plant for processing feedstock material from 3 different sectors: the ceramic sector, the cement sector, and the steel sector. So if we observe the evolution of the industry technologies over the years, energy has always played an important role. From the first industrial revolution with the fossil fuels, we have seen how the mass production requires efficiency improvement, how the automation and efficiency brought alternative fuels, how in the time of digitalization and industry 4.0, industry is turning into the electrification, and now the next step for a smart industry will require the correct use of the electrical renewable sources. So microwave technology is one of the promising technologies in this field, because allow us to have an ultra-fast processing of materials. It brings the possibility of modular production facilities, a flexible manufacturing system to react automatically in case of changes, whether predicted or unpredicted, and kills can be stopped easily, something which is unthinkable now. So if we think that the concept like the Destiny project presents could be the driver to move some parts of the production from a centralized way of producing to a non-centralized way. This is one of the advantages of this technology. So speaking about the ceramic tile industry, here you can see the different stages you can find in a ceramic plant. And as you can see, the atomization, the spray drying, the drying and the firing are the most demanding sections in the plant in terms of energy consumption, and of course this reflects in terms of CO2 emissions. The problem is that unfortunately the microwave technology is not enough mature yet to cover some of these processes. So our approach is a complementary approach. We are trying to cover the treatment of the raw materials. We we think that hybrid systems can apply in the future in these demanding processes, but today microwave is not ready for instance, for a tunnel firing. So in previous projects, we have proved the feasibility of microwave for the drying stage, and we have proved the feasibility of microwave, for instance, for the production of ceramic frits. In particular, speaking about advantages and disadvantages of the technology, we have learned that microwave heating is a very efficient technology. The efficiency is around 70% when similar processes using conventional heating systems, natural gas, have an efficiency around 20 or 35%. But today the main problem is the cost. Electricity is much more expensive. At the end of the day, the cost is compensated with the efficiency, and the operating costs are more or less equivalent, of course, depending on the electricity cost of each country. But if the OPEX, the operation costs are similar, the investment, the CAPEX for a microwave system is still more expensive.
Luis, you have 2 minutes.
Okay. Very quick. Another drawback is the scalability. It's not physically possible to get large microwave chambers. So there is no option that scaling up, duplicating the kiln cells with arrays of kiln cells. So we think that this technology is interesting for products of high added value with small production batches, not for the products of massive production. So, for instance, pigments are more appropriate than frits, or calcined clays for eco cements in another sector are more appropriate than clinker production. So it's a matter of finding how to incentivize this technology, because thanks to the system flexibility, it's a good solution for absorbing the production of renewable energy. So our project is still running. We don't have final results. We are in the second year of the project, but our expectation is to get a savings in energy consumption around 40% and decrease the CO2 emissions at least in 45%. In any case, you can follow our progress through our website, which is DestinyH2020 and beyond.eu. And that's all from my side.
Thank you, Luis. You can stop with sharing your screen, and I'll invite all of our speakers to put their cameras on. It's time for the panel. Now, I feel that this could have been a one-day conference. There is so much rich material here, and all we can do is give people just a taster of what's going on in the sector and what the challenges are. I'm going to switch my view to gallery view so that I can see all of the speakers, and you might like to do the same if you haven't done that. And ask everyone to put their cameras on if you're a speaker, so that we can see you. We did unfortunately lose MEP Calenda. He had an urgent matter to attend to, so he had to leave us. And if any of the speakers do need to leave, then thank you in advance, and it's okay to drop off if you need to. But I have a question for the panel, and I think I would first like to ask MEP Immaculada, can the ceramic industry manage this transition? Are you hopeful? Are you positive or not? And we will give MEP Immaculada a chance to answer, but then I'd like to quickly come to each of the panel members and give you perhaps a minute just to tell me whether you have a positive view or a negative view. Thank you. Please.
Muchas gracias por la pregunta. Yo soy absolutamente positiva pero lo importante no es serlo, sino explicar por qué lo soy. Y lo soy porque yo he vivido con el sector de la industria cerámica la transformación que hicieron hacia la utilización del gas natural. Lo viví con ellos, vi el gran paso adelante que tuvieron que dar. Es verdad que tuvieron la posibilidad de recibir fondos europeos para financiar los enormes costes de inversión que tuvieron que hacer y lo hicieron. Y de hecho hoy tenemos una industria de la cerámica que efectivamente es líder a nivel global. Por tanto, yo creo en su capacidad sin lugar a dudas, pero hay que facilitar que esa capacidad se demuestre en hechos. Y para ello es verdad, ha sido objeto de varias intervenciones, yo también lo he señalado al principio, la necesidad de que las reglas del juego sean equilibradas, sean justas y sean las mismas para todos. Difícilmente una industria va a poder asumir los retos que tiene y a realizar las inversiones necesarias para hacer todas las transformaciones tecnológicas y para invertir en innovación, como acabamos de ver que se está haciendo hacia la tecnología de las microondas, si se permite que otros copien la tecnología, no se respeten los derechos de propiedad intelectual, se facilite la entrada de capital extranjero en condiciones que en Europa no serían aceptables, se permita que no cumplan las reglas del juego que nos estamos dotando para nuestra industria europea en términos de las exigencias medioambientales. Todo eso hace que Europa deje de mirar a la apertura del mercado como una posibilidad de una sola dirección. Tenemos que liderar esas reglas de juego equilibradas, ese mercado internacional sujeto a normas, a principios, a valores y desde luego a unas reglas del juego equilibradas. Y con esas condiciones y garantizando los recursos necesarios para financiar las inversiones, me ha parecido interesante, muy interesante la presentación que ha hecho el representante de la Comisión respecto al Fondo de Innovación. Tienen que pensar en cómo nuestras pymes se les facilita el acceso. No puede ser una carrera de obstáculos llegar a obtener los fondos, sino un camino de rosas para conseguir los objetivos medioambientales, digitales y laborales que tenemos por delante.
Super, thank you. That's a great recap of the points, and I do feel your enthusiasm and your positivity about the industry's ability to make the changes as long as they have access to some support, which brings me to Roman Dubrava. Would you like to have a minute to tell me, are you positive? Can the industry manage this transition?
I'm absolutely positive, and you can see the vibe across all industrial sectors when we were consulting all of them in the preparation of the Innovation Fund. I think there is a lot of good projects, a lot of good ideas. There is an interest in industry to do new investments, and obviously this is also necessary in order to stay competitive. So I'm very positive, and with the host of policies that are coming, with the Green Deal, with the recovery package, I'm very hopeful that also the policymakers will be able to match the regulatory and financial framework which is necessary to ensure that transition to happen. So yes, I'm absolutely positive, and the Innovation Fund is here. So please apply. Do not hesitate and follow us. Pose your questions. We are happy to get in touch and engage. Thank you.
Thank you. We're waiting for your news this week
yes.
on the first call. Thank you. Speakers, I'm going to come to you in the same order that we had on the program, so you don't have to worry that I'm about to jump and pull you in. The next speaker then, Vincent Bassillot from the Commission. Are you positive? Do you think that this transition is possible? I mean, it's necessary, but is it possible? Oh, you're on mute, sir. Vincent, you're on mute. Thank you.
Is it okay now? Perfect. Okay.
Perfect.
Indeed, I'm very positive with regard the capacity of the ceramics industry to manage this transition. This ceramics industry is characterized by its tradition and its sense of modernity. It's a sector where there are very large diversity of products and processes and technologies. innovation and entrepreneurship spirit is largely spread over the sector. And I think this sector is also fully capable to get support from national and regional authorities, relevant authorities, to conduct this transition, and also to make full use of the EU funding programs for decarbonization, such as the Innovation Fund, as developed by my colleague, and also the R&D schemes, such as the Horizon Europe. So there are plenty of opportunities to be very active in this transition.
That's super. Thank you so much. Renaud from Ceremony.
Thank you, Catherine. So I will reply also in a way that it saves me the conclusions, because we do not have a lot of time. I think we really have a fantastic panel that is showing us through the interventions that I think there is a political will to find solutions. This is what we can see from the Commission and the Parliament. We can see for the project that there are a lot of, there's also a lot of will from the industry side, because we are engaged in these products, in these projects. But we see that it depends on so many factors and so many things. I think it was very interesting to hear about digitalization, how digitalization can be also one solution for microwave assisted gas firing with the design of twin kilns. So this is one aspect. When we see what is in common is that cost is always an issue, of course. And this is why I think we can make it, but provided that we have the framework that is adapted to SME sectors, that we have the financial support together with the innovation support, and also most importantly the transition measures allowing us to use electricity in this case and to overcome the cost barrier. Thank you.
Thank you, Renaud. Vladislava, I suspect that you might not be so positive from having seen your presentation. Is it possible, the transition?
Yeah, so indeed, I agree with what Renaud say. I would say that indeed the market conditions might not be easy as of now, and there are, of course, cost issues, as Renaud mentioned. However, it is also a period in time in which we start considering the opportunity to locate industrial capacities in Europe, talk a lot about relocation. And here we have a wonderful opportunity of an industry who is already there, who is already very present across Europe, who is willing to innovate and has the capacity to do it, even though it is based on small and medium enterprises. Well, they do innovate and they do have plans and a nice roadmap, which is really achievable. So the message here is to make this possible, and to include it in a strategy of Europe, for which, of course, some action will be needed, some way to sustain this trajectory, this nice initiative will be required. So the message is positive in terms of need for a willingness, need for a industrial willingness to bet on this sector and to make it possible and to make its transition possible.
Okay, thank you. SMEs are indeed the lifeblood of Europe. I mean, SMEs are what our communities are built around. Abelona, you have a minute. Do you feel positive? Are we going to make this transition work?
Yes, I'm certainly positive, but with some reservations, because as mentioned, this is an industry with very many SMEs. And in order to, I think we do need these disruptive new technologies to go forward, and it can be very difficult for smaller companies to take part in this transition. But also I believe that today, very many businesses have the same technology and they share this technology, so why not share the development into new technologies? So I think cooperation and funding for the development is a key issue here, and also to involve the builders, the designers of kilns to take part in this, because they will supply the smaller businesses once this is a proven technology. So there are many ways to go forward, but investment is certainly needed.
Yeah, and the coordination that you guys are part of through the European projects is super important. And Stefan from Wienerberger. Are you positive? You're muted. There we go.
I'm quite positive. I got a figure today I was looking for the last weeks, that there are around about 1,100 players in the ceramic sector in Europe. And yeah, it's clear that most of them are small and medium enterprises. And I think we have to take care to develop branch solutions for all of us. So that maybe Sierra Moni can take a role as a coordinator to help the sector to be successful.
Yeah, it's a very varied sector.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very varied industry with many different sectors. So yes, it's a good point.
Yeah, many small players, and I think it's the branch solution or the sector solution we need for brick making.
Mm-hmm.
And it should not be on the shoulders of one or two players, even if they are slightly bigger than the others, but it should be a cooperative development, I think.
Are you positive, yes or no?
I'm positive. Yeah, quite positive.
Putting you on the spot. Okay, quite positive. It's a halfway. And thank you, Stefan. And Luis?
Okay, I agree with most of the panelists. I'm a little bit positive, but I think that the cost is an important issue. I think that the market is pretty unfair. So I think we need the support of the administration in order to incentivize this collaboration to reach this position and to achieve or to get that these innovations achieves these innovations getting a reality today in our industries. So I think this is a big challenge, but the collaboration is key, and we have the best players in Europe to achieve this objective.
Well, clearly there is a lot of positivity from our audience, but throughout the presentations today, the challenges are also clear, and the challenges that we face as a society to try to make the changes that we need to make to safeguard jobs and industries in Europe, but moving to a more sustainable and a less carbon intensive industry. So that just leaves for me to thank you all. I feel that this is definitely enough material here to do another event another time, perhaps when we can meet again in person. So I'd like to thank on behalf of Sierra Moni, the European Parliament Ceramics Forum, and MEP Inmaculada Rodriguez Pinheiro. Thank you for hosting us today. Thank you to all of our panelists and to you for watching. And just one last thing, we were supported by fantastic interpreters today, and I'd like to invite the interpreters to just put on their cameras now so that we can see them and we can also thank them. And there they are, our interpreters, Andre, Andres, Joseph, and Julio. Thank you so much. Thanks to everyone. That's now the end of our session, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
And we thank you, Catherine. Thank you very much for your moderation and all the
Thank you. I know
participants.
it's my pleasure. Thanks to everyone.
Goodbye then.
Thank you.